these numbers we've been following every single day, so we know where it's going to go hit and where it's going to take a breather, and that's exactly what is happening so far. And the idea to the upside is still this black line, which has come down from yesterday. Yesterday. Uh, but anyways, this black line right now is standing at about 40.45. So um, understanding is that it's going to go hit that line 40.45, and by that by extension, SPX expecting to hit 40.20 to 40.23 area. Right? So uh, that's the understanding there. 40.25 to 40.20. That's an SPX is 20 points behind the ES, so that's the idea there. If ES goes and hits that number to the top, SPX will go hit that 40.20 to 40.25 area, and then definitely a breather there. And how deep of a breather? It could come back into 40.23 where it is right now. That breaches, very likely it could come back into, let's go here, right about here, 39.99 or 4,000. That breaches, very likely it's going to see 39.82. So if it comes back down to see 39.80 area on SPX, so that means 39.60 area or sorry, 39.80, which is basically the 5 on ES, then expecting SPX to hit 39.60 area. Around if it breaches the 5, it's going to come back down to the 8. That means 39.60 area for SPX downside. If ES breaches or SPX breaches that 39.60 area, then we reassess the situation. Not plotting anything below 39.40 for ES. That means 39.20 area in general for SPX. A breather here makes a lot of sense. Now let's go. This is just the technicals, and if that 40.40 area, 40.45 area clears, then we are looking into 40.70 area. That's the upside. So and then well, 40.40 clears, 40.45, 40.40 clears, then 40.70 to the upside. Downside, if it clears 39.97 area, and expecting a test of 39.80 area, that breaches, very likely it's going to come down into 39.40. So that's the technicals of upside and downside, and the numbers that we're discussing. Just take out 20 points from that number, you'll have SPX number. So that's a trade, and here is the here's the real reason way things are happening. And let's go down here. So we knew DXY will come down into this line to a damn T. It came down and hitting that number. Now, very likely we're going to experience a bounce around this number, 101.60 area, 101.70, 101.60. And probably how far of a bounce, I don't know. I think it already bounced to 102.90. Our expectation to the upside was 102.80 yesterday, right about here. So it bounced till this line. Hope everybody can see this line right here. So to the upside, it bounced till this line and came back down. And now I'm expecting if it breaches down here, the below the 21 on the month, then very likely it's going to go hit the mean around 100 and 100.43, 100.50 area. Uh, so yeah, in general, I think it should be sub 100.50. That's the idea there. And should it take, and there are bright chances of that happening. We are getting closer to a MACD crossover on the month. Very likely that trend will sustain itself to the downside. And why we are looking for a bounce is we'll go on the weekly chart in a minute. But uh, here, right here, we are watching this number. If it breaches down this 101.50 area, then expecting it to come back into 100.4050 in general. And if DXY takes this path to the downside, basically the mean reversion on the month, if DXY takes this path to the downside, then obviously we'll have more upside in the risk assets, including crypto and risk assets such as stocks and crypto and other risk assets as well. So that's the bigger picture here, but that will come to materialize only if it breaches the 21 on the month. Now, coming back down to a lower time frame, the weekly time frame. Weekly time frame here is suggesting that it is decent oversold here. MACD is still on the downside, so likelihood of a bounce is becoming, it's getting amplified. I don't know if it's going to bounce. How rather how far it's going to bounce? I don't know that. But there is a bounce. There's a one that we got that 1 point bounce. But if it bounces here, then this is the number I'm looking at, 103 area, right? And if that breaches on the higher time frame, 103.90 area. The sooner we get over this, the 5 and the 8, and the 5 and the 8 will keep adjusting itself. The sooner DXY gets over this kind of scenario where it hits the 8 and comes starts to come back down, the better it is, right? So we don't have to keep looking over our shoulders. What DXY is going to do. However, a couple of things that are notable: 8 below 21 is still valid on the week, and this trend will be amplified on the higher time frame when the MACD is starting to cross to the downside. Right. So we want to see a bounce, maybe a quick shallow bounce and start to come back down. That's what we want to see from DXY. Here is the DXY on the daily, and this is the chart probably you want to keep an eye on. Um, it is getting oversold here. Look at the SMI; it's got pulled down way down here. So maybe we should get DXY should give at least a half a cycle, come back into this range here, the normal range, and then probably start to die again. So what does that mean? If you don't want to follow all these technicals, you want to watch, definitely want to watch the MACD here, and again, the same thing, 5, 8, push to the downside. And if it clears the 8, then we'll start to take a pretty decent, maybe give it a second look and start to plot anything. If it starts to clear the 8 on the daily, then likelihood of it hitting this 103.25 area, and the mean reversion hasn't happened in a while. So we want to see a mean reversion happen around 103.60 area. As of now, the mean is sitting at 103.60. 103.60 is not the case for today. Probably not the case for even next week, because the CPI came in lighter than expected. Sorry, the PPI came in lighter than expected, or rather in line. The core came in line. So that's good news. And the market is reacting accordingly. And beyond that, rather not beyond that, but before that, you have BOJ, right? BOJ's actions are keeping DXY pinned down. That's a good thing. And China reopen is going on pretty smooth. I think China, uh, the private numbers are different. When I say private, I mean the numbers that citizens are reporting, or private companies are reporting about China and COVID and whatnot. Those are different than what the government is saying. And we go by, in a country like China, we go by what the government is saying, not what the people are saying. So if the government says that COVID is no more, it's not there. So yeah, it's not there. And if the government says that we are going to hit XYZ numbers, yeah, you got to go with whatever the government says there. So that's what we're doing. We're going according to the government numbers, and the government number says that the growth is going to rebound, and that's exactly the assumption that we are taking as of now. But we are being very cautious. If the COVID resurgence happens, and if there's a faulty or if there's a fault along the way of the reopening, then we'll scale back accordingly. If not, we'll proceed with caution. Uh, and right now, from here on, I will be, till here it was a clear move. Till here it was a clear move to the downside, and 8 below 21, everything worked out. Now from here on, I still see upside for the markets. But what I'm cautious about is the earnings contraction. If the earnings contraction happens, especially in the case of Microsoft and Apple, and even if Amazon does, have an earnings contraction, probably it goes down. But it doesn't matter a lot if Amazon goes down. It will drag the market down because a lot of things are connected with Amazon, right? A lot of IT is connected with Amazon. So probably that's the reason you'll see some more softening if Amazon goes down, probably sub 80 or something like that. Then you'll see some a bit of softening in Nasdaq, but the major players, Microsoft and Apple, if these go down, during the earnings reporting or the guidance, then we'll have pretty decent downside, probably about 300 to 350 points on SPX. And before we jump into SPX, let's look at VIX as well. VIX is actually, right here. Let's go look at VIX here. VIX is actually hitting the second standard deviation here on the month. So I'm thinking that VIX should hold around these levels. 1880, it's bouncing off of that. So I'm thinking VIX should hold here. Even if it doesn't bounce, then it should hold here, not crater further. Basically, the idea here is that it is getting oversold. So very likely five clears and the eight at about 2072. This should keep the upside on the SPX in check, and this should also be, if DXY bounces, then it will cause VIX to bounce as well. So right now, that's the understanding here. However, if VIX starts to push to the downside, then very likely this is where VIX is headed, about 16.4. Not the base case, not the base case as of now where things stand. That is not the base case. However, if we see a DXY pushing below that 101.60, 101.50, and probably down into 100 and 150, 140, then very likely bright chances of this thing coming back down and crashing right about here, 1650, somewhere around there. So that's the bigger picture, and probably if you want to trade it, it's going to be on the 1 hour chart and try and figure out. Very likely it's going to breach here, and expectation is to hit this number 1850, 1860 at some point in time during the day and bounce of this number. Right, and you want to keep an eye on this chart now. This is the daily chart for VIX. Same thing again. It gets detached from the 5, goes back up 5 and 8. Same thing. If it hits this number 1940, I think it hit that today. Okay. So if it clears that number to the upside, then we are expecting a hit of 1980 area. If and this should act as pretty decent resistance. I'm not really plotting anything above 1980 as of now. I don't see a reason for that to happen. But somehow, if it comes up to 1980 and then clears 1980, then probably I'm looking at VIX for a mean reversion, very likely within the range of, let's say, about 2060, probably 2110. So this is the range that I'll be starting to look. And honestly, I don't believe VIX will have any meaningful move above 1980 or 1980, 1990 area. But let's keep an eye on that. I think VIX is getting pulled down to a pretty decent level where it wants to bounce. And the SMI hasn't crossed over, so bounce will be a little bit difficult. And I'm watching this SMI here. And if this SMI crosses, then very likely we'll see a bounce, probably come back up into this 8 on the week. And if that clears, very likely 2250. And this is not a story for today. But even if VIX bounces and clears the 8, even the 8 on the week, then I am not actually plotting anything above this 200 and the 100 moving average on the week. VIX is pretty weak as of now, and I don't believe it can overcome this resistance on the week 200 and 100 moving average. And if it does, if it does, something happens that DXY starts to shoot up and this thing starts to come up, then we'll reassess the situation. But today, as of now, the 5, I think it should stop here. But if the 5 clears, I'm not plotting VIX above the 8 on the day. 1980 area, 1980 to 1990, that area should hold pretty decent, should act as pretty decent resistance for VIX. Right, now let's get into some SPX action here. Do we want to do SPX or we already did SPX? We already did. But all right, let's see this thing here. 4011, I think it's going to open somewhere around 4,000, 4,002 area, 4,005 area. And to the upside, again, the same thing, same thing, same thing. Right about here, we are looking for a test of, yesterday it was 47, 4018 or something. If we're looking for a test of this line, the 50 EMA on the week, if that clears, then we're looking for a test of the 50 MA on the week. about 4038, 4040 area. That means you will have ES. If you find SPX at 4038 to 4040 area, that means you will find ES at about 4060 area, right? So 4060, if you have ES at 4060 area, then I don't doubt that it's going to go hit this number about 4070 area. If if ES comes all the way closer to this 4060, then I don't believe that then I don't doubt that it's going to go hit this 47. It's just about 10 points, and very likely, I think this is a more likely scenario if ES clears this number, right? If ES clears the 50 moving average, the bright chances it's going to come back up and hit this 4070 line. And we are not, at least I'm not looking for anything further on ES. If it, if it hits right here, probably I'll exit majority of my trades, long trades. And then again, if it clears this number, the 50 moving average, then I'll go long up till 4060 on ES, and probably I'll exit 4060 number on ES again. Uh, and from here on, probably scalp. If I see Apple still moving higher, then probably I'll scalp all the way up here into 4070 area, and not definitely not plotting anything for beyond 4070 for ES. That means 4050 for 4050 area in general for SPX. So this is a major issue here with SPX, right? 4012, and here is where I think again this test will happen, and the very likely scenario is that this time around, if I don't see strength in Apple, this time around I think it'll come back down there to the downside, 3980, basically the same range as yesterday, down here at the 3980 area, 200 moving average. And we'll see where this 5 would be after the open. This will adjust itself. If the 5 moves up, then very likely, I think it should come back here and bounce. And if it breaches there, then you'll see the 8. Very likely the 8 will be up here around 3950 area. 3955 around that area. Very likely, if the 5 breaches, then the 8 will get tested. Not plotting anything below this line, 39, wherever this line would be after the open. This line should not change a whole lot, but maybe a little bit up, 3920, 3925 area. Not plotting anything below that area as of now. If we get that push to the downside, that would be, again, I think, a buying opportunity, because we have seen the CPI and the PPI come in line, and expectation from the Fed is to slow down for their in their hiking cycle. So that's the bigger picture that you want to keep in mind. And this chart 10160, wow, it's pushing down. However, what I'm noticing here is that it's not translating into ES moving higher, right? And there are bright reasons for that. And as the day progresses, as we have more data, then we'll start to analyze more. Right now, where do we want to go from here? Is this chart, right? So this chart is, and then this is another fear. This is rather, it was good news when it was peaking, but if you see 10-year coming down, this is not good, right? This is definitely, but it's been elevated, and this move to the downside is pretty welcome, but this is not good. What does this suggest? The economy is starting to slow down. That's what this suggests. Uh, so the there are two ways that you can analyze this. If the 10 years starts to come down, that means the one thing, the economy is slowing down. That means the industrials will have a hard time. And if you see the 10-year coming down, then the tech trade will start to pick up. That's the idea here. So if you see 10 years starting to come down, you want to be in the tech. If you see 10 years stabilize or stay, and probably it's going to go here, 3.23, probably this week or next week sometime, it's going to go hit this number. We are looking for another bounce here. After that bounce, very likely the 50 moving average will get tested, 2.12. And if the Fed, and then the expectation from the Fed is to not go 50 bips. Probably it's to come down into 25 bips. If that happens, then very likely you're going to see it push all the way down here into 3.12 or even go down here into the month. Very likely scenario 2.4, right? And we are still monitoring this MACD to the downside. So this is the driver that you want to be keeping a close eye on. And yesterday when we were discussing this chart, we were saying that it's going to come down into 8, test it thoroughly, and if it breaches below there, then we are going to have some decent downside on the 10-year. So the trade 10-year down, tech up. 10-year down, very likely the industrials will be struggling. So that's the idea here. Let's go into Apple a little bit. So Apple till here was a clear trade, right? Five clears, eight clears. Then if that clears, a very likely scenario we're looking at Apple to test this 139.50 area. Let's go Apple on the day right here. So yesterday, the idea was for Apple to hit this 137.60 area. If that clears, 137.92, 138, not plotting anything above 138.65 as of now. So let Apple clear this number right about here, 138. Let's round that up at 138. And if Apple clears there, and then we're going to reassess Apple probably into 138.70 area. And not really plotting anything above 138.78 because the technicals are getting stretched here, right? The technical down here, you still have MACD cross to the upside, and we still are getting these nice big, histogram, the green bars here. That's nice. That's all good. And we still have this thing crossed to the upside, and this hasn't even reached the baseline yet, the zero line yet. So I'm thinking that maybe a breather is warranted here, and the price has left its 5. So we'll probably when the market opens, we'll see the 5 moving up, probably all the way till here 134, and we'll see wherever that 5 would be. We would expect it to hit either here or here, the either of these two lines, and start to come back down into that 5 on the day. That's the understanding here, and that's how the options are positioning right now. Even though the market is moving higher, the put premiums are not dying as with a great velocity that you would expect them to die. Right here, let's go Apple. It's still not oversold, right? Yesterday it was oversold, gave us a nice entry again. Today it's not oversold on the hour. So I'll be again operating the with 1 hour time frame. Probably if it clears here 132.30 area, then we're looking for a push all the way into 138. But if it starts to take a breather, then again the 5, the 8, looking for a bounce around 136.35 area. uh, Definite bounce here, but if the bounce fails, very likely we're going to see the mean. Mean right now is about 135.90 area. No, no, that's not the mean. Mean is right here. Mean is about 135.59, 135.60 area. So we want to see this mean get tested to the downside, and again we'll again take probably take it again to the upside. But if the mean breaches, very likely bright chances of it coming down into 135. I don't see any reason for it to go down and test this 50 moving average at about 134. Uh, but if Apple starts to come down, definitely not plotting anything below 134, or rather this 50 moving average on the hour. Definitely not plotting below this today. Actually, I'm not plotting anything below the mean on the hour, but some reason if it starts to breach below the mean, uh, because DXY if DXY starts to bounce and Apple starts to breach below the mean, that's the only scenario where I'll likely see Apple at 135. And definitely, there is no chance today. I think Apple will push below this 50 moving average on the hour to the downside. And if Apple starts to come back down, breaches the mean, comes back down into 134, then I think there'll be a pretty decent damage on SPX. Cool. Let's get into a bit of Tesla here. Tesla was monster trade, worked out every single way, and Tesla probably I think hit about 138 or something, 137.70 somewhere around there, and probably pushed to the downside. So idea from Tesla is still to hit this number here, 138.60, and very likely I think it will test that number and start to take a breather. And if Apple starts to move to the upside, probably go test 138 area, then you'll see Tesla right here, 142. This is the target. Basically, this is where Tesla wants to move into. And if you start to see the MACD crossing to the upside on the week, then probably there's a bright chance it will clear this number and head for this number here. Today, PPI came in, in line or lighter than expected. So expectation from Tesla for this week is 142. And after that, the next week is earnings. Earnings, usually what happens with Tesla is Tesla runs up into the earnings and gives up the gains after the earnings. So I'll be traveling on Tesla's earnings, but the way that I want to be playing is that again the IV, whatever probably I'll buy some close to the noon on probably I'll buy some puts actually. Uh, Rather I'll buy both sides, puts to the heavier side, probably 2-1 or 3-1 puts. Then I'll exit that trade before the market, before the earnings, before the market closes, and probably and probably play with those profits if I want to gamble the earnings, right? um, uh, the chatter is that earnings are not going to be as pretty as the market is expecting, and probably after that I think the Tesla will come back down, probably, I don't know, again to this 100 or even to that 88 number, long standing. Where is that? Right about here. Right about here. Although I don't believe this, this would happen, but it's and if actually Tesla comes down into this number 88, 86, whatever this is, then I will be a buyer of Tesla here. I'll see, because what will happen is that by the time it comes down all the way down here into this 100 moving average, you'll have the technicals here rather deeply oversold on the month, and one of the things that bounces pretty hard is anything that is oversold on higher time frames. Cool. So if it starts to clear this line here, 138, and then expectation is for it to hit this 160. Probably this is the earnings. If the earnings come in good, this is where it is going. And if the earnings come in bad, likely it's going to come back down here. Right. And for now, if we want to trade Tesla, uh, pretty decent oversold conditions here. We want to see Tesla take a breather. Probably a breather is due around probably 138. 138, I think if we plotted into 138, hopefully we hit that and then start to take a breather. 135.80 area bounce, and we'll see whenever this new hour opens. We'll see where the technicals will be. 135 is another good bounce spot. If that breaches 133.70, and the mean is sitting all the way down here at 128.80. Hopefully, we get another chance to pick up Tesla at 128.80 and watch Tesla here. It is still crossed to the upside, right? So, pretty decent chances that even if it comes down, probably the algorithms will start to buy it. But I'll be very cautious with my Tesla trade today. All right. Anything in particular we're watching? No. All right. Cool. Let's move into live trading.